Give it up for Doug. He made a trip down here from Jacksonville.
Big trip.
Long journey. So yeah, I think it'd be great to start with a little bit about background on yourself and like how you got started. Obviously, Beeline is an incredibly successful company. I was reading that you guys count 30% of the Fortune 500 companies as customers. And you've been with the company for over 20 years, which is actually the rare thing these days. Most people just career hop, bounce from one company to the next. So, very curious to hear how you got there and what kept you there so long, and some of the lessons along the way. So, first off, what were you doing in college? What were the things that you were interested in? And did you ever think that you'd be the CEO of a big company at the time?
No, and that wasn't really my ambition. I always wanted to be an FBI agent or going to CIA or something like that. And I had a really, really good time at Vanderbilt. That was back in the days when you could actually get into that school and not have to be too bright. So there was a lot of partying going on. And look, my grades weren't great. And I got out and realized there's no way I'm getting into the FBI with a B- average. So I decided to pursue a master's in human resources and actually apply myself. So I got that at Vanderbilt as well. And then my dad was a Pepsi guy, so I knew about consumer products, but I didn't. Job market wasn't great. I actually followed my wife. She went to Vandy, but she got her PhD here. So I was living here trying to find a job unsuccessfully. Finally found a headhunter that got me into a company called Pillsbury, which you guys, most of you are too dang young to know, other than the Doughboy, but that got acquired by our biggest competitor. So the first 10 years of my career was in consumer products, just going through typical sales, those different iterations. And then I found myself in Jacksonville calling on Winn-Dixie, and I'm a history major to boot. So, but it just goes to prove that's not really that important. So the CEO at the time, we sold that company. He said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I'm really enamored with this brainchild you've got called Beeline, but I don't know anything about tech." And he said, "Well, go run product management." And I said, "I don't know anything about product management." And he said, "Well, you're going to figure it out." And that was 25 years ago. So Beeline, just real quick, think of this software that's SaaS, and we could talk about the SaaS X or whatever you guys want to call it, because AI is going to eat my lunch, but sits in the middle of the large enterprise, and people don't really realize there's this shadow workforce, and it's comprised of billions of dollars to spend. So JP Morgan Chase, confidentially, although I'm sure this is being recorded, would spend several, I'll just say, in the billions on external labor. That could be contractors, it could be BPO, it could be 1099s, ICs, freelancers, all this that supports the enterprise. But how do they bring those, how do they find them? Staffing firms and others. I don't source, but the software basically manages that whole process for auditability, compliance, cost savings, visibility, et cetera. So that's my story. I'm talking too much, so let's turn it back over.
No, that was perfect. So you start as a product manager. How do you end up becoming the president and then CEO of this company?
Again, I didn't seek it, but I think, and I tell a lot of people this, I've been on this thing called the corner office, a podcast. Like, how'd you get to the corner office? Like, well, don't look for the corner office. If that guy's obvious. Like, you can always spot that guy in 2 minutes. And I say guy because they're usually a bit aggressive and offensive. The women actually have a better approach, in my opinion. And so my whole thing is just build a coalition. And I had a hard lesson taught to me when I was 28. I was in charge of all the financials at Pillsbury for this region. And if you guys know what a 360 feedback is, this was big back in the day, and they would get feedback from everyone up, around, and below you. And it came back that you're doing a great job managing up. Like, everybody up here thinks you're a rising star, but these guys, not so much. And it really wounded my soul. I felt bad. So I did a mea culpa. I sat down with every single one of them, and I said, like, that's not who I am. How do I serve you better? And we turned that around, and it was a great relationship. But the lesson for me was, you got to serve the people around. I never say below, but you know what I'm saying? And then you'll ride the current. So I think it's important to build those coalitions and to ensure that you're just helping everybody else as opposed to just working for your own title or salary or whatever that could be.
Absolutely. So we're going to have time for questions in a little bit here. But one thing I'd love to know, from the outside looking in, it always seems like, these companies have these big headlines that continue to grow. On the inside, I know that it's never that simple. It's never that easy. It's never a straight line.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear about what was the most challenging moment throughout this time that you go on to become president, CEO of this company. You guys are scaling every single year. What's the most difficult time for you guys?
It might be right now, honestly, with AI, and we can talk about that. And that's what I love about this world. It changes so quickly and so dynamically. I've never seen anything like this. But I will tell you, I often say my real title is Chief Psychology Officer, because business is supply and demand. Like, you can figure that stuff out. I always say, once you get a customer or an employee, everything kind of goes to hell. And that's because we're complex beings, right? And egos and different styles and all that come to play. And so it's really important to try to figure out how to navigate the people element and to get the best team. We've got 9 principles I brought to the organization. I won't bore you with them, but a couple of them are direct communication, and that's followed by assume positive intent. And direct communication doesn't give you license to be a jerk, right? You still have to try to seek to understand the other person's perspective. So honestly, I think it's the people side. I will tell you, for the first time in 25 years, I'm sitting and looking at this landscape that is changing such unprecedented speed that we're going to make some major changes within the organization. But you can kind of normally sort of predict where things are going, not right now. And especially as a SaaS company and everybody's saying SaaS is dead, it's sort of scary and challenging. And we have about 700 employees, and I feel very tied to them. And so it's like the economy's been sort of tough in our industry for the last 3 years. We've done well, but not as well as I'd like from a bonus perspective, and that weighs on me heavily. And so I don't know if this will prove to be one of the toughest times. We had plenty. I've made 8 acquisitions, 3 were dogs. So that's just part of life, right?
Yeah. What is your approach navigating this new world that we're in with the AI boom and with everything coming so fast? Like, how are you educating yourself? How are you finding the right people to help you make sure that you're not getting cut out?
I'm not sure I've solved that. I can tell you about my personal experiences. I use AI to help figure out AI. And I said, look, I'm not a Silicon Valley guy. I don't know what's going on out there. I feel like I'm a little bit behind in certain things. Help me develop a learning plan to get up to speed. And as you know, it's brilliant. I will share one of my frustrations is a lack of curiosity. And I see it in my teams. And it's just a little bit embarrassing that the 60-year-old here knows, like I told you I'm not technical, and I developed an app with lovable.dev. Like, is it legit? No. Is it a great prototype? It is. And so my point is, guys, if this old guy can sit down for a couple hours and put together, I'm sort of proud, it's pretty cool. I need way more curiosity. I need way more velocity. I need more urgency and passion. And I think we're getting certain aspects of the group there, but it kind of amazes me, honestly, and no offense to my young friends here, but and this is probably a different crew. My experience to date is that the older people seem to be embracing a little bit more than the younger, and I don't know what that dynamic is, and I hate to make sweeping generalizations, but that's what I'm seeing in my own company right now. I don't mean that for my developers, but for the rest of the world, this is what I'm seeing, and it's going to change, but it's disappointing at the moment.
Yeah. What would you say for students that are entering the workforce today or trying to build their companies today? What piece of advice would you give them? It's like dirty laundry time in terms of frustrations. I'm a pretty optimistic guy, but as you can appreciate, I get a fair amount of calls that, hey, would you invest in this and this? And I'm like, yeah, tell me about it, and what are we trying to do? And I've heard this so many times, like, oh, we're going to raise a bunch of money, we're going to sell in 2 years. Click. Not interested. That is 100% the wrong approach, in my opinion, and I've been wrong in many, many things. But I do unfortunately find that most people are out there to try to turn a buck in a couple years. I've done okay, I mean, I'm proud, but it took me 20 freaking years of busting it, right? And I think generationally there's a discord in terms of we can create an app, maybe not anymore, we use AI or whatever, and then we're just gonna go sell it. And that doesn't inspire me at all. So I want to understand, you hooked me up with somebody, and he's doing really cool work, and that excites me, and that's why I invested in that dude. Even if he doesn't make it, I almost don't care, right? And so what I would say to you guys and gals is like, passion is such an overused term because I love Jeff Galloway's, like, you don't get to do passion, you got to go bust your butt and pay for the rent, and there's a lot of truth in that. But find something that you clearly care about and that you want to work tons of hours, not because you're trying to turn a buck, but because you think you're making a difference either in employees' lives or customers' lives or your family's lives or whatever that would be. So there's no magic recipe. I'm just telling you from kind of a characteristic perspective. I look for purpose, I look for grit, and I importantly look for introspection, because if you can't do that, then we're going to have some issues. Absolutely. I assume those are the same things that you look for when you're investing in companies as well. So a little side tangent, the way that we connected is me and Justice, when we launched our fund, second investment we ever made was in this Vanderbilt alum named Edward Nass, he goes by Teddy. And yeah, we ended up introducing him to Doug. But the way I connected with Doug is I actually just sorted through my connections on LinkedIn, and I was like, who do I know that went to Vanderbilt? And I was like, oh, this guy could be a good mentor for Teddy. And so I connected them. They hopped on a call, and one call,
But it was a bait and switch, right? Because he did this mentor thing, and then I didn't realize it was really about investment. And I will tell you, I'm sure a lot of you folks do, this isn't like I'm great, but I get pinged on LinkedIn I don't like LinkedIn at all. It's just, it's noise and it's garbage. But like 1 out of 100 will just kind of get me somehow, which I don't, to this day, know how you did, but you did.
The
so
timing worked.
Yeah, there's
and the messaging.
spark. Yeah, it was well done.
Thank you. Cool, so I think we could open it up to a couple questions here, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have things on your mind. Weaver?
Hi, guy. Inspiring story. He even hired a couple of interns recently where the tube broke to pay it not be sent out. And one of the things we started doing was requiring them to have facility. Sorry, usually loud enough. We require them in the solicitation to have AI facility. They're not literate in AI. So, what do you do in regard to troops?
It's such a great question, and I just said I'm not a big LinkedIn guy, but I do like putting out quasi-controversial topics like this one. And I said, look, I shared, I'm gonna answer your question, but real quick, I shared a story where my daughter, she went to SMU, and I kind of pushed her to get a master's in HR, and she came out, and sorry gang, but this is one of the worst job markets I've ever seen for college grads. Less so for your niche, but she's crushing it on TikTok. I mean, like, she's making more than myself, my wife, and my son combined. And so the story was, did I really need to push her to go get that degree? And I've changed my perspective because old schoolers, like, you got to get a degree to get into the business. And I don't believe that for 1 minute. I think you have to have the skills, the passion, the grit, everything I talked about. And AI is now really, really important. So there are certain people in the organization that I've latched onto, reverse mentoring, if you will, these kids who, you know, has a master's in AI. I'm like, just teach me, right? And it's really fun. The honest answer, Weaver, is at this point, I don't have a requirement. It's been, NVIDIA is one of our big clients, and so I think we probably all follow Jensen, and he said something I think is really germane. I may be paraphrasing, so don't kill me if it's wrong, but basically it was like, it's not that AI is gonna take jobs, it'll take some, let's be honest, but people who have AI literacy, or in your words, better words, facility, will take the jobs. And that's 100% true. And so I'm on the precipice of telling my whole team, stop your roadmap, we're gonna piss some customers off, I get that, but we're gonna piss them off worse if by December 31st, I don't have MCP in play and I'm agentic ready for the externals and the internals, and we gotta change things. So I think, honestly, it's gonna start to weed itself out. And I use chat, but I just got the note today, we finally got, Anthropic is so busy with people asking, but we finally got the pilot set up. So I'm gonna offer it to people, I'm gonna look at usage, I'm gonna see who's doing what with it. I'm creating so much incredible stuff, not me, but Claude is, I'm prompting for my clients, and it changes the game for everybody. Every single position in my organization should be leveraging it. And so, honestly, right now, I'm gonna just wait and see, and I'm gonna find the superstars who take it and go with it, and then, you know, we'll go from there. But I hear where you're coming from, and I think internships, especially unpaid, are a great way for both sides to move forward in careers and business.
Question in the back?
Well, I'm mistaken, you said you were in sales for Pillsbury before you were a company.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that and how that like helped you out as CEO?
Yeah, thanks. The question is, I started in sales, and how did that help me be a CEO? I'm not sure everybody would even argue I'm a good CEO, but it did help me get to CEO because, at least in my mind, when you're selling a product or a service, and there's an old saying, it's so old, but like a bag of flour, just turn the lights on. That was in the Pillsbury days. Half you don't even know what I'm talking about because you don't even have to pay through checking and stuff anymore. But the point is, like, nothing happens until a sale happens, right? And that's an investment, that's selling Beeline to whomever, to Meta, like all the work we do. Like, nothing happens until you sell yourself and then the products. And so I think, and I don't consider myself a salesperson at all. I've been in sales roles, but I don't think anybody likes the moniker, but sort of that filthy salesperson we think of that makes us a little bit nauseous. I think sales is really about connection. I think it's about honesty. I think it's about integrity. There's plenty of deals I've walked and it's like, I'm not your guy. I wish I was, but based on what you shared, I'm not your guy. I'd much rather retain you for 15, 20 years than win the deal today. And so it's a germane question, and I appreciate it, but look, I think, as I said earlier, we're just complex beings, and this is just one skill set, and we have to think about how do we continuously develop ourselves and grow and expand ourselves so that we're more meaningful to those around us.
Question over here?
So I've founded B2C and B2B companies, and the hardest part I find with B2B is getting my foot in the door, especially as a young college student.
Yeah.
As CEO, and obviously you make sales as well, how can I best get my foot in the door with so many ways to connect with people, so many ways to message them? What is the most effective strategy to say, hey, maybe I am credible, or at least check me out, at least check out what I have to say?
I love this question. I really do, because I get pinged a lot. And as you get older in life, you feel like you want to give back more than go, whatever, get the title, right? And so this is like really rewarding for me to get to meet people like yourselves and give me so much faith in this world that's hard to have faith in at this certain time. It's a hard question, so I'm going to give you a couple secrets. at least from my perspective, and even my own team isn't doing this the way I wish they would, it's really, really, really hard, okay? Before I go into the secrets, I want to share with you that 86% of buying today, of all the research before the buying, is done before I even talk to a salesperson. So let's call it 85% to make the math easy. That leaves us 15% to talk with vendors, sellers, et cetera. Typically, we look at 3 different sources, right? 3 competitors. That means I get 5% of your time. That's rough. Back when I started, I'd probably be getting 15, 20% of your time. Then we can start talking about the sales relationships that we were just alluding to in a moment. I'm gonna share with you how people have gotten to me. I get a lot of stupid things like, here's $100 if I could have, like that just, I send it to charity and it offends me, right? I'm not saying I'm a super wealthy guy, but like if you think you can buy my time for $100, like you haven't done any research on me. And it means you don't know me. And we all want to be known and seen and appreciated. But this guy got me. He's a small banker in town, and we use Wells, right? I'm owned by private equity, so with all due respect, we're not going to work with this guy. But it's a Vanderbilt book for Doug Leeby, and it just had all this stuff in it. And I was like, dang. The guy thought about who I am. He made an investment. It's not like I loved the book. I didn't read it or anything, but it wasn't about that. And I said, very honestly, I'm not going to give you my business, but I will give you an hour of coffee, and we can network in town, et cetera. And we became friends. We're going out next week, and again, it has nothing to do with business. That was one way. But let me help you, because you can't send alma mater books to everybody you want to reach out to. Here's the thing. I don't care what you're selling me. Like, I'm so busy, I don't care, and neither does anybody else. And that's the same way they feel about me with Beeline right now. So what I'm trying to share with my team is, what do you care about? I'll tell you what I care about is what's happening in the world that's going to impact me from an AI perspective, from a compliance perspective, from a tech perspective, from what young kids are looking for in their jobs. Is Gen Z really leaving the workforce and going independent contractors? This stuff excites me, and I want to understand about it. And so what I try to do is and use AI. So I did this just the other day, and it wasn't on you, but I'll just pretend. I took everything in LinkedIn. I'm not going to tell you the client, because you might bust me, but I put it in there, and then I basically took his questions and a lot of stuff that we have and said, help me understand how best to relate to Tarun. He's like, Tarun's trying to trap you with this one question in terms of, what of your product don't customers like? Salesperson's gonna be like, oh, we address everything. An honest person's gonna be like, they hate my interviewing. Let's have a conversation, right? That's trust. So my point to you is this. If you can go to them with something that's germane to their real life, I've got a sales guy in Europe, he's crushing it because he takes the 10Ks, he downloads it into AI, and then he ties into what we're doing, and he goes to CFOs, which is audacious in our world, and says, hey, I noticed that you're concerned about CapEx, blah, 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 blah. Do you understand that the shadow workforce is 35% on average? I don't know what is your organization. Here's some strategies that typically bring costs down 10%. My math may be wrong, but I think that equates to $7 million. If that's interesting, I'd love to talk. He got an email that day. He didn't get a meeting with the CFO, but he got a meeting with the person that reports to CFO. So you've got to really start to think about, get out of yourself and think about what does he or she care about and just work on the relationship. And then again, you got to be talking about problem solving, not products or services. Nobody cares. There's 1,000 companies like me that could do a fine job. But once they start talking about what matters and how we're going to get there, then you start to build a relationship, and it's always on trust, and that's when the buy happens. It's hard though, man. Grit is so freaking important, so just don't give up. You're a shiner. I'm looking at you right now. I already know you're going to make it. You betcha.
Yeah, so just being more strategic, more methodical, and I think so many people try to do like the whole spray and pray where you just send out like 100 of these cold emails, but instead, I think it makes more sense to be more of like a sniper where you can like, these are 5 people that I really want to get to. I'm going to do research on them, and I'm going to send them very targeted messaging, and to Doug's point, so you have a higher chance of getting to them. So. We'll take 1 or 2 more, and then we'll wrap up. Over here.
So what is work-life balance to someone who seems to be constantly learning and working?
You may not like this. I don't believe in work-life balance. I don't. I mean, just life balance. So whatever works for you, and I'm going to open up the marital graveyard right now and say, I've been accused of being a workaholic. It's a fair accusation. I love what I do. I love with whom I do it. I take vacations with my family. My kids are older now, but I still do all that stuff. But kind of back to did you start with sales? Yeah, I was in sales and I was banging many, many, many hours every single week, and I still do. Every weekend I'm working. So you may not love that. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you guys are painted with this whole Gen Z just wants to go surf, I actually don't believe that. I've got every single demographic in my organization, and for the most part, people bust their butts. And so it's all like, what do you want in life? I'm not doing it for the dollar. I'm obviously not doing it for the title, but I freaking love what I do, and I love the challenge, and I don't know what the hell to do with AI right now, but we'll figure it out, or we won't, but it'll be a lot of fun figuring it out, right? So that's just my personal opinion. Like I meditate, I do all sorts of woo-woo stuff that might freak you out a little bit, so that's how I get some balance mentally. But man, I just like whatever it is, even if it's surfing, just go. I'm telling you, man, you're young. When you hit 60, things, no number bothered me till the 6 in front of the, and I'm like, you know what? Definitely on the downside. And so what do I want to do with my life? And everyone's like, when are you going to retire? I'm like, I'm not. My dad died at 84. He never, ever retired. He said, son, I'm going to tell you one thing. And again, it doesn't have to be work. But if you don't have a purpose to get out of bed at 6 in the morning, you're going to die. I mean, you just are. As you get old, your body just doesn't have something to go for. So whatever it is, whatever that passion is, go and go hard.
Go all in.
Yeah.
One more?
What's next for you after Beeline?
That's a really good question. What's next for me? I'm at that difficult point where, as a history major, I so love George Washington stepping down when he stepped down. Like, I get that, right? And as I start to get hints that I've, let's say, aged out of certain knowledge, et cetera, it becomes clear that at some point I got to get out of here. And that's a hard thing to consider after 25 years. But what I know is I'm going to have to make a clean break, right? You can't have the cult of Doug hanging around. So I honestly don't know. I want to get through one more exit. I really owe it to my team to get through that. And I think we're probably 3 or 4 years from that. And then I'm not sure. Like, I'll do something. I love where Beeline is today, but I loved when we had about 100 people and the coffee pots were broken, and not broken, burned, you know, because people would work. So like, I dig that stuff. And both my kids are 1099s, independent contractors. My son's in a startup. I'd love to just go help him from a sales perspective. My daughter doesn't need my help, but I'd like to go at least make sure she's paying her taxes, which I know she's not, right? So just stuff like that. No, it's true. Different personalities. He literally went to Oxford. He's brilliant. I'm in the car with her, and I go, baby, what's that sticker on your windshield that says 2021? She goes, yeah, what is that? And I went, oh, we're going to the DMV right now. And we did. So I don't know. It's a fair question. I do contemplate it. I love to travel and all that stuff, but I know I want to be involved in this, and if I can maybe get involved with the young to help them learn a little bit of some of the things I've failed at, that'd be great.
Awesome. Give a round for Doug Leeby.
Thanks all. Appreciate it.